George Russell has always been known for his professionalism, calm attitude, and dedication to the sport. But even the most composed individuals have their breaking point. And for Russell, that breaking point seems to have arrived not on the track, not during a controversial race, but in a press conference, where he made it clear that he, along with other drivers, is fed up with the way the FIA is handling key decisions. This isn't just a minor disagreement or a temporary frustration. It's a moment of tension that highlights a much deeper problem in Formula One, the growing disconnect between those who govern the sport and those who bring it to life every weekend, the drivers. The latest spark in this ongoing conflict was a new set of rules introduced by FIA President Ben Sulayem. At the heart of these rules is a crackdown on swearing and what the FIA calls harmful public acts in motorsport. On the surface, these rules may seem like an effort to maintain professionalism and uphold the image of Formula One. But when you take a closer look, the way these regulations are being enforced, and more importantly, the way they were introduced, without input from the drivers, reveals a troubling trend. One of the most controversial aspects of these new rules is the severe punishment attached to them. Drivers could now face fines of up to $101,400 for using bad language in public. That's not a small penalty. And to make things worse, the FIA even suggested that drivers could be suspended or lose championship points for such infractions. It's a dramatic shift in tone from the governing body, and it didn't take long for the drivers to react. Max Verstappen, the reigning world champion and one of the most outspoken personalities on the grid, was the first to feel the weight of these new regulations. During a press conference in Singapore last season, Verstappen let a few words slip. Nothing. Out of the ordinary for someone who just gave everything on the track. But instead of a quiet warning or a private conversation, the FIA handed Verstappen a community service punishment. At the time, it seemed like an isolated incident, maybe even an overreaction. But now we know it was only the beginning. What followed was a series of new rules from the FIA, each one appearing more focused on controlling drivers' conduct, both on and off the track. These weren't just rules about how drivers behave during a race or how they interact with officials. They stretched into press conferences, interviews, social media, and even how drivers carried themselves in their personal lives. The message from Ben Sulayem and his team was loud and clear. Step out of line and you'll pay the price. But for the drivers, this approach felt not only excessive, it felt personal. They weren't just upset about the penalties or the restrictions. They were angry that these changes were being made without any consultation. No one had asked them for their input. No one had considered how these rules might affect the way they engage with fans, with the media, or even with each other. It was a one-sided decision, and the people most affected by it, the drivers, had been left completely out of the conversation. That's where George Russell comes in. As the head of the Grand Prix Drivers Association, Russell carries the responsibility of representing his fellow drivers. He's not known for being confrontational, but when he believes something is wrong, he doesn't stay silent. And in the lead-up to the Miami Grand Prix, Russell had a chance to speak publicly about the FIA's controversial rules, and he didn't hold back. In a press conference, Russell addressed the issue head-on. When asked about the FIA's statement that they were considering making changes to the rules, he responded clearly and directly. Yes, he said, it's nice that they're thinking about it, but that's not enough. The drivers want action. They want real, meaningful changes, not just vague promises and soft words. Russell made it clear, until something is actually done, until the rules are adjusted to reflect the concerns of the drivers, all the talk in the world won't mean anything. Russell's comments weren't just a critique of the rules themselves. They were a powerful statement about trust. The drivers need to trust that the people in charge of Formula One understand their role. They need to believe that their voices are heard and that their concerns are respected. But right now, that trust is being tested, and for many it's already broken. Russell's frustration was echoed by other drivers as well. Lewis Hamilton, one of the most experienced and respected figures in the sport, also shared his thoughts. He talked about how the drivers don't have a real seat at the decision-making table, and that, he said, needs to change. In his view, the drivers should have more influence, especially when it comes to rules that affect their day-to-day lives. They are, after all, the ones who represent the sport to the world. They are the ones fans come to see, and they are the ones who take the risks. Hamilton's comments carried weight, not just because of who he is, but because they reflected a growing feeling in the paddock. The drivers feel like they're being treated like children, scolded for using strong language, warned for expressing their opinions, punished for being themselves. And all of it is being done in the name of professionalism or image. But the truth is, Formula One's appeal doesn't come from perfect behavior or clean language. It comes from passion, from emotion, from the raw, unfiltered reactions of drivers who give everything on the track and aren't afraid to show it. The fans know this. They connect with drivers because they see their personalities. They hear their frustrations. They understand their triumphs and heartbreaks. When a driver lets out an emotional outburst after a tough race, it's not a sign of weakness. It's a reminder that these are real people, competing in one of the most intense sports in the world, and that's what makes F1 so compelling. By trying to control every word, every gesture, every aspect of a driver's public life, the FIA risks turning the sport into something it was never meant to be: cold, polished, and lifeless. And as Russell pointed out, words are not enough. What the drivers want, what they need, is action. Ben Sulayem did eventually respond to the criticism. After weeks of backlash from drivers and fans, he issued a public statement. In it, he said that the FIA was listening to feedback and considering changes. He claimed that the governing body would work collaboratively with drivers to build a better future for the sport. On the surface, it sounded promising, but for many it felt like too little, too late. Russell didn't seem convinced. "We want to see these things put into action," he said, "not just hear that they're being considered." That statement summed up the mood perfectly. It wasn't about nice words or social media posts. It was about real, concrete steps. And until those steps were taken, the drivers weren't going to back down. This growing divide between the FIA and the drivers is not just a side story in Formula One. It's a central issue that could shape the future of the sport. If the governing body continues to impose strict rules without consulting the drivers, it could lead to a serious rift. And in a sport where unity and collaboration are essential, that kind of tension is dangerous. The drivers are not just employees or performers. They are the heart of the sport. Without them, there is no F1. And when they start to feel like they have no voice, like they are being sidelined or ignored, the entire foundation of the sport begins to shake. What makes this situation even more complicated is that it's not just about swearing or specific punishments, it's about control. It's about who gets to shape the future of Formula One. Is it the people in the offices, writing the rules and issuing fines? Or is it the drivers, the ones who risk everything to bring those rules to life on the track? As more drivers join the conversation, speaking out, sharing their frustrations and demanding change, the pressure on the FIA continues to grow. The governing body finds itself at a crossroads. It can either continue down the path of strict control